with Chris Jericho calling out a school principal and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for May 24th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With reports of the script for Monday Night Raw being rewritten several times before the show eventually airs, former WWE analyst Renee Paquette spoke on the Throwing Down podcast about how often Raw goes on without the show being fully written. There are times that have gone on the air with Monday Night Raw and the show is not written. It is full being redone. We don't know what's happening, so creative can most certainly change. It happens very often. Also, the production doesn't get out until 3 p.m. and that's on a good day. That's when things are running smoothly. On his Hall of Fame podcast, Booker T gave his thoughts on WWE unifying the tag team titles on SmackDown last week, saying, "For me, I like having at least 2 tag team belts, one on SmackDown and one on Raw." Booker T was then asked by host Brad Gilmore if there are enough teams on both divisions. There probably will not be enough teams, but it could still give those tag teams the initiative to become tag team champion. Taking away one tag team championship and making it to where everybody got to work towards that one. Is that something that's possible? Yeah, I think so. Honestly, I think that's going to make it a whole lot harder. Just say, for instance, we do create more tag teams. Then what are we going to do? Bring the tag team championships back? And then what it does also is make those guys work more. They have to work on Monday night and Friday night, and they may have to work on the weekend as well. Also on his podcast, Booker T reacted to a match from a GCW pay-per-view where Joey Janela lit his foot on fire to super kick his opponent. I'm always willing to say in somebody's face that I'm willing to say on the show, Joey Janela, that was the stupidest thing I have ever seen in my career. I'm serious. He didn't have on like a boot where it could actually fend off the flames for a minute. He had a kick pad on and a tennis shoe, and he put so much damn lighter fluid on his foot, I mean it probably soaked all the way through to his foot. And the thing is, I don't know how many seconds it was in flame, but it was more than 20 seconds, and fire can get hot in about 20 seconds. Hey, if this is the route you want to go, that's on you, but plan on working that scene forever, because this is not stuff that they do in the major leagues. It just makes zero sense. And that's what I try and teach my students. Hey, stay away from that. Don't go that route, because at the end of the day, you're not going to make a whole lot of money doing it, and you can screw something up permanently doing something like that. I know there's a market out there for it, but it was probably 150, maybe 200 people in that hall where they were doing this. And there couldn't have been that much money in that little hall. Couldn't have been. Speaking about what's to come for Sasha Banks and Naomi following their walkout on Raw, Booker T said, "If someone was to walk out on a reality of wrestling show, I would fire them. One of my wrestlers went out there and totally went against the grain one night after I set him up to win. I told him to pack his bags and I never want to see him again, because that's not the way this works. I give you a script and you go out there and go off script. This is what happens. You get fired. It's just that simple. If I had someone who was on the card that night and said, man, I ain't doing this because I don't want to do a job tonight, then get out of here. I don't think anything personal towards Naomi or Sasha. You know, this is business. A lot of people are commenting on it like it's personal, like WWE has an axe to grind against Sasha and Naomi. I really don't think that's it." Speaking to VL Media about her feud with Becky Lynch, Raw Women's Champion Bianca Belair mentioned how Becky is one of the best storytellers in WWE. At SummerSlam, people thought Becky Lynch killed my momentum. It was a hard pill to swallow, even for me. But in the end, working with Becky Lynch allowed me to grow tremendously as a talent at WWE. I learned a lot from her in the ring, but also outside the ring. She's a huge advocate for women's wrestling so that it stays at the top of the map. I'm grateful to have had the chance not only to face her, but also to have been able to tell this long story that concludes included at WrestleMania. Working with Becky is fantastic. She is a formidable competitor. In the ring, she is one of the best storytellers in the promotion. When you re-watch the WrestleMania match and dwell on her facial expressions, you can really feel the emotions. She carried the storyline on her shoulders from August until WrestleMania. Most of the time, I feel like women don't have those long-lasting storylines that lead to a purpose. We had the chance to tell that and keep the interest of the fans. After defeating Asuka last night to earn her spot at the pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell will see Bianca Belair defend her title against the Empress of Tomorrow and Lynch in a triple threat match. With WWE set to return to Saudi Arabia for an event on November 5th, it seems AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view could end up being on the same day as it was said on Wrestling Observer Radio. It's Crown Jewel November 5th, because it's the weekend that AEW Revolution, Full Gear is the name of the November AEW pay-per-view, would normally be on, although it's a Saturday. But then again, Full Gear would be on a Saturday, but it might be the next weekend. It depends on schedule and things like that. I mean, the AEW November show. The key is that Tony Khan wants to avoid UFC, wants to avoid big boxing, which there often is in November. You can't avoid college football. You're going to be against college football no matter what. So the week of that show could, like last year, it changed. They moved it back a week because there was too much competition on the first week. You know, obviously, pay-per-view night is their biggest money nights of the year, and they don't want to lose 10% because they're going against something really big, let alone two things really big like they would have done last year. I guess that the Saudi show, because it's earlier in the day, it wouldn't go head-to-head, but there is, you know, depending on what UFC does and what boxing does, if they're going to do a big show, say, the next Saturday, then we may have a situation where there's a pay-per-view show in the afternoon from WWE and in the evening from AEW. It's all to be determined. Given the walkout of Sasha Banks and Naomi from WWE, the women's tag team titles are now vacant, and champions will be crowned in an upcoming tournament. Speaking about plans for this, Dave Meltzer said on Wrestling Observer Radio, here's the situation with the tag team title. They're going to do a tournament. There are pitches that have been made, and that's where we're at right now, so there's not a final thing. I know of different ideas. It does feel like it'll probably be 4 teams. Nikki and Doudrop probably one of them. Shayna and Natalya probably the favorites, because they're probably the best of the 4 teams, what they have. And as far as the other 2 teams, there's several different options, but essentially it would be putting Carmella and Zelina back together, even though they've broken up, or just having 2 people who have never teamed, and 2 teams of just people put together, whatever it is, however it is. But yeah, nothing is finalized right now. During an appearance at the Motor City Comic Con, former WWE star Adam Cole spoke about his decision to join AEW. One of the biggest things was getting to be around and see Britt Baker a lot more. At the time, our schedules were so different that there'd be some times that I'd see her for maybe half a day, 1 day a week. Sometimes I wouldn't see her for weeks at a time. So getting to travel with her and just being behind the curtain when she walks through after she's done a match or a promo is really nice. When it comes to dream matches in pro wrestling, some may never come true, like Stone Cold Steve Austin facing Hulk Hogan one-on-one. Speaking about why this bout never took place, Jim Ross said on his podcast, Austin didn't have the match with Hogan because he didn't want to have the match. The Undertaker did. Hogan was battered, beat up, multiple back surgeries. It's funny when people say, what's the really important thing to learn in pro wrestling training? Well, you've got to learn to take a great flat back bump, because about 98% of the stuff you see ends with a flat back bump. With him calling out a public school district in Florida over a video where his niece is being bullied, Chris Jericho took to Twitter again last night to call out the principal. I have screenshots of messages sent to the principal by my niece's older sister on May 6th asking for help with some girls who were messing with my sister. I know who they are and need to talk to you about them. Those messages were left unanswered. Want to see them? During an IWE show in Augusta, Georgia earlier this month, Joe Black would flip a fan's hat off of his head, which led to the fan headbutting him. This caused the wrestler to respond with force, as he's now spoken to Wrestling Inc. about the incident. Tariq is doing the typical things a manager does, you know? He's talking crap to people, he's choking the babyface, blah blah blah. So this gentleman, who was the person who headbutted me, actually said to Tariq he called him a racial slur. So Tariq whispered to me, watch out for this guy. So I ignored it, kept working the match and getting my heat. He then said something racial racial to me, which I really don't want to repeat, but I let it go, because at the one show before, a couple shows before this, a fan actually stepped over the barricade and got on the apron because he thought he was part of the show, and I didn't even antagonize this fan because I was a babyface, and he just decided to step over the barricade, so I didn't want to take away the match. Anthony and I were having, so I ignored it, kept getting my heat from everybody else. At the end of the match, Cruel comes out and we set up an angle off this match. I'm walking around the ringside. At this point, this gentleman, front row fan, mouths to me the same racial slur he called Tyree. So at this point, I flipped his hat off and I kept walking. He got up and then he headbutted me in the face, which prompted my response to hit him back. This gentleman kept saying things. At this point, it was pretty much diffused, and a lady that was sitting near him said he was being obnoxious the entire night. He was drunk, like not a couple drinks drunk, but he was plastered, and he was sitting front row, and apparently he was being obnoxious to the other talents too. So my intention was never to go and assault this fan. He tried to spin it and say that I made contact with his face when I flipped his hat off and his glasses flew, which if you look at any of the angles of the video, there is no way I touched this guy. I flipped his hat off, and then, he's trying to make it seem like the reason he attacked me was because I made contact. It was the bill of his hat flipped up, and that was it. He was being racist to me and to Reed. The response that just flipping his hat to me was tame. I'm still in character. I'm still the heel persona. I didn't stop and curse at this gentleman. I didn't call him out. I just flipped his hat off. When asked about those claiming that the hat being flipped off was a form of assault, Black said if it is, then, grabbing a sign out of a fan's hand and ripping it up, that's a form of assault too. If you're slapping a drink out of a fan's hand and you're actually making contact with them to do that, that's a form of assault. I just tweeted out a video of MJF to open dialogue about it, of MJF flipping a guy's hat off. This guy in the MJF video didn't even say anything to him. He just walked by him, being the heel that he is, flipped his hat off and kept walking. So if that doesn't cause an uproar, then why are the rules different for me when I do it? Especially when this fan is saying racial things to me, and I let that go, and I could have escalated to something so much more. All I did was something I've seen heels do for 15-20 years of watching wrestling. You're going to flip your hat and be a smartass and keep walking. And to take it a step further, MJF, who has been one of the best heels in the business in the last several years, he does the same thing at an AEW taping, where he actually grabs the hat off the guy's head and throws it across the arena. So I mean, he's in a major company. I would think if that doesn't cause an uproar, if Tony Khan didn't come out and say, we shouldn't do things like that, and everybody laughed at it, it's funny. Why is it funny when he does it, but it's assault when I do it? It just seems like it's not equal. Taking to Twitter, WWE Hall of Famer Kurt Angle posted a video talking after a double knee replacement surgery.
Hey, this is your Olympic hero Kurt Angle, and I'm in the hospital right now because I just had knee replacements done this morning, and I'm feeling pretty good right now, but my legs are numb because of the epidural. So I know I have a long road ahead of me, and I'm willing to work very hard to get back to where I was before. I want to thank all of you for all of your support and your wishes and prayers for my surgery. I really do appreciate it. God bless you all.
While making an entrance for AEW Dynamite with an abortion rights shirt, CM Punk would be criticized by former WWE star Jackson Riker for this, who wrote, "This is disturbing, this is evil, disgusting. It's a living baby inside the womb. Mothers who think this is your only choice, it's not. There are many willing to help, adoption, money, etc. I will adopt the child. Our Father weeps. Rise up. Rise against abortion, against homosexuality, against gender agenda, against that which goes against the word. Share love in doing so. We all have faced times in sin where a brother or sister showed us Jesus and his love. Church, we must love and speak truth." And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.